I'm going to say a series of statements, and if one applies to you, I'd really appreciate it if you would raise your hand. You'll either pick between option 1 or option 2. So let's get started. Please raise your hand if you like dogs. You're a dog person. All right, hands down. Please raise your hand if you prefer cats. You're more of a cat person. Cat ladies, no shame. Let's try colors now. It'll be between red or blue. So please raise your hand if you like the color red. All right, now please raise your hand if you like the color blue. All right. I want to get a bit of a gauge of how tall we are in this room. So please raise your hand if you're 5 foot 8 inches or shorter. No shame. Please raise your hand if you're taller than 5 foot 8 inches. All right, now let's tweak things a little bit. For these next set of statements, you can feel free to keep your hand raised if more than one applies to you. Raise your hand if you're from a different country. Raise your hand if you or your parents are from a different country. Now finally, raise your hand if you or your parents or your grandparents are from a different country. All right, a few more, almost done, I promise. Raise your hand if you know someone that's different than you. And this isn't a trick question, so hands up. Raise your hand if you know of someone from a different country. Now finally, raise your hand if you've actually met that person and you know more about them other than that they exist. Very good. All right, last one now. Everyone, hands up. Put your hand on your heart and repeat after me. Oh, some of you guys, wrong side. Heart's here. Heart's here. Now repeat after me, loud and proud. All of you. All of you. I love you too. Thanks so much. Round of applause for the welcome. Thank you. That was fun, but let's move on. So I think there's something to be said about how similar we all are and that we're all so different. And that's a critical point to understand, especially when we're surrounded by so many different kinds of people. Think about the activity we just did. Think about when we raised our hands for different things. It may sound silly, but it really reminds us how different we really are. However, we also share a lot of things. And an idea that I think is worth spreading is that we as a whole need to do a better job in welcoming new American students into our society by looking to the things that we share, rather than simply our differences. Take school, for example. At school, all students come to learn, grow, and one day become better versions of themselves, and to find success, whether that's for themselves, for others, for their families, or even for the world. We as students all share this value in the pursuit of success. However, despite this equivalency, there's a clear divide as I walk through the halls of high school. As I walk through high school, I see this huge divide between what we see as normal people and different people. New American students are separated into different classrooms, not necessarily at the fault of anyone, since these students do have to play catch-up. But these students are separated into different classrooms where they can only interact with people in the same situation they're in, rather than the huge portion of students that they wouldn't see outside of the in-school environment anyways. These students walk the halls together, sit at the same lunch tables, and even use the same corner bathroom, sometimes known as, believe it or not, the foreigner bathroom. What does that reflect on how we truly welcome new American students? On the flip side, we do an amazing job in celebrating the differences and uniqueness in our cultures. We find ways to highlight the beauty and value in these cultures. We hold celebrations, dances, and events that truly show all of the amazing things that we have in our differences. However, why can't we do the same thing and celebrate the things we share? Why can't we find a way to sit down and, to borrow from the theme, break bread with different kinds of students and identify the things we share, our passion for music, our love for sports, and our lust for knowledge? I'd like to draw on a specific personal experience that really taught me a lesson in understanding shared values. This story is fairly unique in that, as you can tell, I'm not your typical Midwestern white kid. But I think that just further goes to show that the way in which we welcome new American students into our society is something that we all can work on, and that it's not just a cultural or a racial issue, but a societal issue. A few years ago, I sat down in chemistry class, eager and excited. My entire educational career has led up to this moment. After cheesy 90s lab safety videos and hours spent in class simply talking about what we were going to do in the chemistry lab once we were older, I was really looking forward to finally being able to experiment in the lab. One common component of working in the science lab that many of you may remember is the coveted lab partner, the person that destiny chooses for you to work with for a year of chemical mixing and flame testing. For me, this led up to the biggest moment of my chemistry class career, because this would determine how the rest of the year was going to go. Now, let me say this. I've had plenty of friends that were different than me, whether that be in interests, opinions, or even cultures. However, that day, I found myself experiencing a twinge of hesitation. Not a substantial amount of hesitation, but a twinge nonetheless. And that twinge led me to realize that something was wrong. Now, many of you are probably scratching your head at this point because I just said that I've had plenty of friends that were different than me, whether that be in interests, opinions, or culture. However, at the same time, I'm saying that I was hesitant to be paired with someone. And let me tell you who this was. This student was a new American student who just recently came to America. He was from Vietnam. And I had a twinge of hesitation, I'll openly admit that. But the key point I want to get out of this is that we aren't comfortable with our perceived differences. If you see someone and you perceive them as different, and you don't want to admit it, but it's there. There's a hesitation that's there and you don't know what to do about it. And this confused me because my entire life I've been surrounded by different people, whether that's different interests, different cultures, yet I had this twinge of hesitation, and I was still hesitant to be paired with this new American student. Moving forward, I was able to address this internal barrier through experience. As the year went on, I began to communicate more and more with my lab partner, and I began to realize there was a lot more that we share than I initially thought. He talked about his personal story, his personal life, his job, his interests, his opinions on things, his favorite sports, even his idols in music. I began to realize that this hesitation was built off of the attitudes that surrounded me in my peers and in my education. Think back to the activity we just did. Everyone in this room is so diverse and so different. However, we're also similar. We're all here. We're all talking about important issues, important things that matter to us. We're talking about ideas and values that we all share. Why can't we find a way to translate that appreciation for our differences and that openness and that welcomeness to our differences and the acceptance that our differences are what create parallels? Why can't we translate that to the classroom? Now, I'm not here to propose perfect solutions or permanent fixes to the small and inherent hesitations we have towards new American students in our society. I'm not here to tell you all what to do or how to do it. I'm here communicating through a candid and honest student perspective that we need to find it within ourselves to find new ways to welcome new American students into our society. We can always celebrate religion and beliefs and traditions and all the things that make us different, but where has that led us? From talking about all the things that make us different, we've lost the understanding of the things that we've shared. I challenge you all to think of my personal story. I challenge you all to meet a different lab partner and to work and to listen to that lab partner. And if life gives you a lab partner that maybe you weren't expecting, you'd be surprised what kind of chemistry can develop from it. Thank you. Thank you. It's time to reflect on how we welcome new American students, and it's time to rethink how we do that as well. We need to challenge ourselves to break bread with different kinds of people and to break barriers, externally and internally along the way. We are not that different, ladies and gentlemen, and I challenge you all to think about what I've said today, and I hope that you see it as an idea worth spreading. I thank you all for listening to me today, sorry, a bit of an accent there, and I really hope that all of you find your own lab partner. Thank you very much.